from BBC World News, I'm Sophie Ikenye. Our top stories. Protests in Togo. Tens of thousands take to the streets to demand constitutional reform despite apparent concessions from the government. As protests take place in the United States, we hear how young Africans living in America now fear for their future after the Trump administration gets tough on immigration. Also in the program, we look at climate change. Why your favorite cup of coffee could soon be more expensive and may not taste as good as it does now. Lights, catwalk, curves. We celebrate the African woman's body.
I feel as if it's time for the plus-size women to be celebrated in their own unique way.
And in sports, Kevin Anderson becomes the first African to qualify for a Grand Slam semi-final since 2003. Thanks for joining us on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. We begin in Togo, where there have been rapid developments in the past 24 hours. Anti-government protests have been taking place with supporters of opposition groups gathering in cities and towns across the country. Demonstrators are calling for President Faure Gnassingbé to resign and to limit the number of terms a president can serve. Now, this is despite an apparent government concession to their demands. Harry Darkins has the latest.
Unprecedented scenes in Togo, especially in recent times. Protesters in cities and towns across the country take to the streets demanding constitutional change. Amnesty International says more than 100,000 people marched in the capital Lomé, many wearing the red, orange and pink colours of opposition parties. They chanted the words "Free Togo." They want President Faure Gnassingbé to resign and to limit the number of terms a president can serve to 2.
We suffer too much. We can't even find food. What country are we in? We don't want Faure anymore. He must go.
Today we are here with the Togolese people to demand reforms and the return of the diaspora vote, and especially to demand the end of a system that has lasted for 50 years. We must begin to see the end of this system.
On Tuesday evening, Togo's cabinet approved plans for a bill that would modify the constitution, reintroducing presidential term limits and changing the voting system. But opposition members say the president is merely buying more time at the helm. There also appear to be restrictions on internet communications throughout Togo. Faure Gnassingbé has ruled the West African country since his father died in 2005, after 38 years in power. His father passed a law in 1992 limiting the president to 2 mandates, but then scrapped it 10 years later. In total, the Gnassingbé family has been in charge of Togo for 50 years. They have a strong grip on the military and still enjoy support from broad sections of the Togolese community. When the protests started last month, crowds of government supporters also took to the streets in support of the president. But it's yet to be seen if the Cabinet's draft bill modifying the constitution will pacify these opposition protesters. Harry Darkins, BBC News.
Well, the BBC's Claude Foley, who's from Togo, has been following the story for us and joins us live from Dakar. Foley, it appears the government is trying to meet some of the demands by the protesters. Is it likely that the protests will now stop?
Not at all. Our correspondent in Lomé confirmed that the population reacts once again positively to opposition call. Many rallies are reported not only in Lomé, the capital, Sokode, Bafilo, and so on. They are not satisfied if we can refer to the banners they are showing during this protest. No one mentioned until now any violent incident, and opposition leaders are addressing huge crowds in many places in the country.
Which brings me to my next question. How big a threat are these protests, though, to the government, given the kind of grip that the regime has on the military and sections of Togolese?
On this point, I need to base my opinion on what are saying observers. Observers consider that the ongoing protests are the most serious ones since the President Paul Gnassingbé took power in 2005, because majority of the population is very angry with this issue of limitation of mandate, namely because political agreements signed by both parts more than 10 years ago to fix it have never been applied. And let's remember also that Paul Gnassingbé is ruling this country since 2005 after the death of his father, who spent about 40 years in power. And the acting presidents had been re-elected twice in 2010 and 2015 after election amid opposition contest. And more of those people are saying that I denouncing a dynasty, and some are asking the resignation of the president. Another point is that the opposition leaders seem more united than ever.
So what next with regard to this draft bill that's been passed? What should we be expecting to see now?
It's completely unclear. There's no parliament session ongoing because it's to the parliament to vote this bill, and government announced no extra session. Some expected a next move, maybe from the president, like a dialogue offer to opposition or a concrete adoption of this bill by the parliament. But it's sure that the government will react to this first day protest lately tonight.
All right, Claude Foley, thank you for that update there on Togo.